So hi everybody and welcome back to the C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This video 297, and in this video we continue with our value categories, and we have read here already a little bit about this history. We covered the CPL, the C, C++98, and we are here in C++11. But before we continue here with C++11, which is almost that what we have today when we compare this one with C++11, it's almost identical what we have today. We have to understand C++98 a little bit more in detail, but what I mean with that is just how we use these diagrams, because at the start, before we started with L values and all this kind of stuff, I showed you there are diagrams like this, GL, L value, XL values, some diagrams like this or other diagrams, and this here, if you understand what this means, then you understand value categories. But I said it's very hard to understand these diagrams if you have no background informations. And now what I want to do here is I want build a diagram, of course not the end diagram. I want build a diagram starting from this point. And actually this building a diagram, I found just an article. There are many other articles. I just picked randomly one which I found. I don't know, you can see I found an article was written here in 2018 or so, and this article describes also the parts which we have discussed here, and also later how it is developed. So with other words, it describes all these parts of this diagram, how it is created and how you can how you can imagine it. Important is we don't have to imagine it, we can just follow this one, because like I said, he describes exactly more or less this what we have here in his words, and additional information which will be very important to understand this. This article I will link in the description. You can read it. Is just when you read this one, it should just give you like it says here, you should just get an intuition, or what is called here, this one, intuition, just to understand how the basics works. But read this article, you will see what I mean. But we are building now this diagram, and we start now here with the C++98, and let's start reading this again. We already read this, but now we create a diagram of that. Okay, so we read this pre-2011, which means before 2011 there is something like C++, I don't know anything others. It was the C++, the C model, right? It says here follow the C model, that's what they had here, but they bring back the R value. So when we start to create this one, and you can see he started this also back before C++11, this is this one here, that what comes here. He describes that there were two value categories, L value and R value. L value, R value. And we have now a little bit more background knowledge how this L value and R value was introduced, how it was introduced with the CPL, how it was changed with the C. And important here, some side notes, is that you know what L value is here. L value is defined. What was the definition? The last one, more or less this one. An L value means an expression that identifies an object and locator value. So we have an L value. He made this one as a square. L value here. And then let's watch this a little bit more. And here in C++98, but restored the name R value, because in C here before that they used not here in C, they used not R value, they called this others, but here they introduced R values again, so that was this R value. So here we have the names L value, R value, and we created this one. But important is that what stays here below, right? This has identity, no identity. And I said we have to clarify identity. And when we watch this here, where was this identity introduced again? Let's go a little bit back. We can see here in C, when they try to explain L values, means an expression that identifies an object. Here it says just identifies an object, but identity is a little bit different because can have different meanings in context. But the nice thing is we make it now very easy as a beginner, and we say identity, so is like identifying an object, and an identifying object is the memory address, because we try to find a unique place, a unique property, and there are different kind of unique properties an L value expression can have, but the memory address is one of the best. Let's say not all time, perhaps there are exceptions, but most of the time the memory address is one place where we can make it absolute unique. But let's try to understand this now in code, because this is very theoretical. I told you anything with L value and has identity. Let's go to this code here. Let me go here to this one. I think that was what we have. I think that was my example. And here was this int c is equal 0. So the c here is an L value, right? I create this. And why is this an L value again? Let's remember. I go back. An L value has an object. Is this an object? Yes, it is an object, but important that identifies an object. This is an object. An L value must have now identity, and I said the identity must is a locator value, but here in this case it is the memory address. So can I as a programmer access this memory address? And you can see, yes, I can get this memory address, for example here, and assign it to a pointer, and I can manipulate this memory address, so I can put it out. So we as a programmer can get access to this one. So has identity, to make it simple, careful, identity, the word identity has more in-depth meanings and more complex meanings, but here in this case, to make it very simple, identity, we can get the memory address. That's why also this locator value here. So okay, and we have to talk, of course, you have to read this a little bit what identity means more in depth. But again, to make it easy, we as a beginner, identity means for us, first of all, we have to find a property which is unique, and the best thing to find is the memory address. But you could say here, wait, why I need here the memory address? I see here the name. Why is this name not already sufficient for identifying these objects? Yeah, you could say that, right? You could say that it's enough. Here's the name. When I know the name, then I have identified this object and I can use it in my code, right? But you have to be careful. This int c, for example, can be defined in your code other places as well. What was this again? Remember, I can make something like a block. How I make a block? I can make a block, right? And the funny part about this block is I can write here again a C, and the point is this C and this C are not the same. So you have to think, oh, wait a minute, what is this C? Is this C and this C the same? So here you can't distinguish this with the name. So, and that's one, but identity means you can distinguish these two C's here. And how you can distinguish these two C's here? If I get this address, it will have not the same address of this C. The address will be here different. So again, I go back to this word identity. You have to read this if you want to understand this a little bit more in depth. in a theory book and again in a good C++ book, but here we make it easy and say when we get the address, this is one good property to identify an object and make it unique so we can distinguish it from others. This was just an example when the name is not sufficient enough to distinguish about two objects here. All right, so far so good. So we are still creating our diagram. So we have an L value and we say the L value has an identity, and this is it must have an identity. So if the L value has no identity, for example, this C value, if I can't find here the address as a programmer, let's say I can't, let's go rid of this one. Let's say I can't get this one here like so, then this will be not an L value. For example, here, the 0 here. The 0 is a literal, we learned this. A literal is also an expression. Okay, an expression has a value category. Okay, but is this now the value category L value? No. Why not? Then that's the question. And the answer is, I can't get the address as a programmer because we learned L value must have identity, and I said to make it easy, identity means just I need to get the address. And of course some say, of course this has an address, but the internal address of C++, the C++ of course create this 0 anywhere. That's not what we mean here. Look, when we talk about the address, is the address which we can get as the programmer, and we can get only this one here. This one here we can't get, and this here becomes also another name later. It is a temporary. What means temporary? It is just created here to use, and after the semicolon it's never used again, at least not this one which was created here. So after this semicolon here, the 0 has done his job and is gone, but my C here, this one, this object which I create here after the semicolon stays there, and I can use it later because I have here the C is the object, the identifier, and it refers to the memory address in where this program saved that. So I hope that's enough for that. But yeah, think about it. L value needs identity. We can get the address as a programmer, and here the 0 is an R value. Let's go here to the R value, has no identity. Again, what means no identity? I can't get the address as a programmer, the memory address. I can't get it. And it becomes most time a temporary. Temporary means it is just used here, and after, for example, here the semicolon, after the semicolon, which is a statement, after the statement, the 0 is done, has done his job, and yeah, we'll create it again when it's needed again as a temporary. All right, that I hope that makes it a little bit clear what means has identity, no identity. And let's go back to C++. So you can see L value, this L value which we created here was defined here a little bit, and then it was a little bit redefined. You can see they introduced R value back, that was that, and then they made here a little bit redefinitions like we already talked. Functions becomes also to L values, added R rules to references, and this or other things here. You have to watch separately again examples to understand this a little bit more in detail. But at the starter, for us it's very important that you just understand this simple diagram here, because later we will try to understand this diagram here. Okay, so and here the last thing before I go on to create this one is that you understand this property identity is needed to describe an L value. This is one property, and later we will have even more properties, but this is one very important property. All right, I hope you understand this, and I want that, of course, I will link this one here, this article, so that you can read this one here, how it is created. We will create this also, but read this through. It's just an introduction about this one here and how this is treated and so on. And I will link this in the description. And then we will go on, I think so. Yeah. So if you have any questions or anything else, you can write in the comment section. And with that said, have fun. See you in the next video. Bye and good luck.